a secret operation, hidden identities, and a real courtroom battle over what's actually fair when the truth finally starts coming out. Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Hello. Yeah, today we're really getting into quite a fascinating legal exploration, all stemming from a specific case in Hong Kong. Actually, you, our listener, pointed us towards some really compelling materials on this.
That's right, stuff focusing on legal precedents and, well, the tricky ethics around gathering evidence.
Exactly. So our mission today is to sort of dissect this specific legal challenge. You've got police officers facing corruption charges, right? And the whole prosecution case really hangs on confessions they got through an undercover operation.
An operation involving a known criminal, no less.
Precisely. We really want to understand the intricate legal thinking involved when a court has to evaluate this type of evidence.
Okay, let's unpack this then. At the heart of it, we have two police officers. We'll call them Officer Zhang and Officer Lai, just for privacy.
Good idea.
So Officer Zhang, he was facing some pretty serious allegations, soliciting and taking bribes, HKD 600,000 in total between late 92 and early 93.
And these bribes were supposedly from this individual nicknamed Cao Rong.
Yeah, allegedly in return for helping with some triad-related renovation work in a housing estate. And then Officer Lai, the second officer, was charged with taking HKD 75,000 from Officer Zhang. So pretty significant corruption claims.
Definitely. And the story takes a really interesting turn with this undercover operation. The authorities, well, they first heard about these alleged offenses back in October 1994.
How did they find out?
Cao Rong himself reported Officer Zhang to the ICAC, that's the Independent Commission Against Corruption.
Okay, the informant reported the officer.
And this is weird, Cao Rong disappears, just vanishes.
Vanishes. For how long?
Until June 1996. He pops back up, gets interviewed by the ICA, under caution, and then gets arrested himself.
Arrested for what? Reporting the crime.
No, for offering an advantage to a public servant. So it's already getting complicated, right? A whole web of interaction.
Definitely. And this Cao Rong, he wasn't exactly a model citizen before all this, was he?
Oh, not at all. His criminal record goes back, over 30 years. We're talking triad membership since '63.
Wow.
Illegal money lending, running gambling dens, bribing police apparently to protect those dens, carrying false ID, selling dodgy videos, assault, intimidation. The list goes on.
And he admitted all this?
Yep, admitted it himself during the trial. It really does sound like something out of a crime movie, doesn't it? This character being central to such a key legal fight.
It really does.
Yeah.
So given this extensive history, why use him?
Well, that leads to the ICAC's decision. It seems like a calculated risk. They decided to use him, plus an ICAC officer acting undercover. Let's call her Fragrant Chicken.
Okay. Fragrant Chicken and Cao Rong.
Uh-huh. The main goal was to get solid evidence against Officer Zhang based on Cao Rong's claims, but they also hoped to uncover maybe other corruption too.
Right, a secondary objective.
And here's the crucial part. The Secretary for Justice at the time cut a deal with Cao Rong. Immunity.
Immunity for what? His past crimes.
For a huge range of offenses committed between 1963 and October 1994. Basically, his entire adult criminal life up to when he first reported Zhang.
That's quite an incentive. Was anything excluded?
Just the specific bribery offense he'd just been arrested for. Everything else wiped clean, prosecution-wise.
So, okay, set the scene for this operation then.
Right, so from November 96 to April 97, Cao Rong poses as this senior triad guy.
Right.
And Fragrant Chicken acts as his follower, his bodyguard. They start contacting Officer Zhang and Officer Lai, meeting them, talking on the phone.
And recording everything.
Everything, using hidden audio recorders. They ended up with 39 tapes, and Cao Rong was taking instructions directly from the ICAC the whole time.
39 tapes, so the recordings must have been the key evidence.
Absolutely. The prosecution's case rested on them. They argued that during these recorded chats, the officers basically admitted their guilt on the bribery charges.
But the defense obviously challenged that.
Of course. They argued the evidence shouldn't even be allowed in court, which led to this trial within a trial, basically a mini hearing just on whether the recordings were admissible.
Okay, a legal sidebar, essentially.
You could say that. And the trial judge sided with the defense, ruled the recordings and transcripts inadmissible, said the confessions weren't voluntary.
Not voluntary, even though they were just talking, not being formally interrogated.
That was the initial finding, yeah. Because of that ruling, the prosecution had nothing left. They offered no more evidence.
So the officers were acquitted?
Acquitted, yes. And interestingly, they were even awarded legal costs against the prosecution.
Wow, costs awarded too. That seems to send a strong message about the judge's view on how that evidence was gathered initially.
It certainly suggests strong disapproval of the methods or the resulting evidence, yeah.
So this whole situation really forces a big question, doesn't it? About the justice system itself. What are the proper limits? Where's the line for using confessions that, okay, maybe weren't forced, but were definitely obtained through deception?
Exactly. Especially when the person confessing has no idea they're talking to law enforcement or someone working for them.
Right. So the Hong Kong Court of Final Appeal had to step in and wrestle with this fundamental tension.
Mm.
How do you balance effective policing against, the basic right to a fair trial, and specifically the right to silence?
And interestingly, the Court of Final Appeal actually disagreed with that initial ruling about voluntariness.
Oh, they did. How so?
They said the trial judge hadn't applied the legal test for voluntariness correctly in this specific context. Their point was, just tricking someone about who you are doesn't automatically make a confession legally involuntary.
Okay, so deception alone isn't enough to make it involuntary in the legal sense.
Not necessarily. The traditional test for involuntariness looks for things like, was there fear of prejudice? Was there a hope of advantage offered by someone in authority? Was there oppression during questioning?
Things you'd associate more with a formal police interview, maybe.
Kind of, yeah. And the court felt just being tricked by an undercover operative didn't automatically fit those specific criteria. This case really pushed Hong Kong law to think harder about balancing crime fighting and rights. It wasn't just about voluntary anymore.
So if not voluntariness, what was the key issue for the final appeal court?
It shifted more towards the overall fairness of actually using that evidence at trial. That became the central point.
Fairness, okay.
And the main question under fairness was, did this undercover operation and trying to use these recordings effectively undermine the officer's right to silence?
That right. You mentioned the one that protects you when dealing with the police. But hang on, isn't there still a big ethical difference between, say, confessing under pressure to a uniformed officer versus spilling the beans to someone you think is a fellow criminal? Doesn't the deception itself kind of go against the spirit of that right?
That's a really important point, and the court definitely grappled with that. It led them to lay down some guidelines for trial judges, specifically about when they should use their residual discretion.
Residual discretion, what's that?
It's basically the judge's power to exclude evidence, even if it technically might be admissible, if using it would just be unfair to the accused, if it would bring the administration of justice into disrepute.
Okay, so a kind of fairness safety net. What were the guidelines?
Well, first they said passively recording someone is generally okay if the person is just talking freely, voluntarily, without the undercover operative really prompting them.
So just listening in and recording is usually fine.
Generally, yes. But active questioning by the undercover operative, that raises big red flags.
Why the difference?
Because the suspect hasn't been given the official caution. They haven't been told they have the right to remain silent, which they would be told in a normal police interview. Active questioning in secret starts to look a lot like an interrogation without the safeguards.
That makes sense. Were there other factors?
Yeah, the court also said that how serious the crime is, well, it's relevant, but it shouldn't be the deciding factor. Everyone gets a fair trial, no matter the charge.
Good point.
And also, the reliability of the confession itself matters. Like, if the recording quality is terrible, or maybe the undercover person's memory seems shaky, those could also be reasons for a judge to say, nope, not using this.
Okay, reliability and the nature of the questioning. Got it. So what happened in this case after the appeal?
The Court of Final Appeal overturned the acquittals. They sent the case back down for a retrial for both officers.
A retrial, so starting over.
Essentially, yes. They told the trial judge, okay, now you need to reconsider whether these confessions are admissible, but use the principles we've just laid out.
Did the final appeal court itself decide if the evidence should be used?
No, interestingly, they said they couldn't make that final call themselves because they hadn't actually reviewed the transcripts of all those 39 tapes.
Ah, so they set the rules, but didn't apply them to the specific facts in detail.
Exactly. They left it for the trial court to do, now properly equipped with the right legal framework.
So as we finish up this deep dive, it leaves us, and you listening, with a really weighty question, doesn't it?
Definitely.
In trying to get justice, especially for serious crimes like corruption, how far is too far for the police, for law enforcement, to go using deception to get people to confess? Where do you draw that line between a smart investigation and something that actually tramples on someone's basic rights?
Yeah, where's that boundary between legitimate investigation and infringing fundamental rights, like the
Yeah.
right to silence and the whole idea of due process? It's a really complex ethical and legal balancing act, something to definitely think about.